So with Uniswap v3, which is what we're talking about, right? Like, it's important to recognize what Sam was saying there, which is when you start with one asset or a combination of two assets and you go to the top or bottom of your range, effectively what you have done is you have sold your asset, the one asset you held, for the other asset that you held over time. So use an example on a range, right? Let's say we were talking about the HEX price and the HEX chart between HEX and USDC. If the price is 10 cents and I have half my money, or I have all my money there, but 50-50 split, if the price goes down to under 5 cents, effectively what I've been doing over time is buying HEX with my USDC, such that now when I'm at 5 cents or below, I now only have HEX. Similarly, it can be a sales strategy if you're trying to get out of HEX or another asset, that if you put it on at 10 cents and it goes above 15, now suddenly you're at a point where you only have USDC. So frankly, from my perspective, like, one of the ways that I use this is to avoid having slippage on any sort of DEX order. Because if you just pick a range and you're patient enough, you can actually sell off your asset over a range, and it means you have no slippage. And in fact, I mean, you're not trying to execute an order at a specific price unless you do limit. So you wind up with a better order execution too. Impermanent loss is really the difference between what you would have had if you had just held the asset as the price went up, as opposed to what you hold in terms of your USD value by being an LP. And so a lot of people like think really hard about impermanent loss, and it worries them because they're like, well, if I had just held the asset up to 15 cents, then I'd have HEX and I'd have it all at 15 cents and I'd have more money and it could go higher. And right. So that's definitely a concern if you're worried about that. But if you recognize that you're selling the asset in the range or buying the asset in the range, then it's not impermanent loss. It's just you being a DCA. It's just a DCA strategy where you're going up and down. That's my perspective on it. Sam, what do you think?
I think of it as like an opportunity cost. I don't remember if you were married in any of the conversations, Stoic, or Max, if you have a girlfriend or a wife. But I have a girlfriend. She's amazing, right? But I could have had a different girlfriend. So like if I chose to dwell on the fact that there's a hot girl at the gym that I could sleep with, right? If I chose to think about that, like, fuck, I'm with my girlfriend, right? That's an opportunity cost. And when you think about, like Stoic was saying, you recognize like what it actually is. Impermanent loss, if you think about it like asset A and asset B. Asset A goes up by a 10x over some period of time, and asset B goes up by a 3x. So during that time, if it was 6 months, right, what's happened? People have bought the asset that is going up in value from you, meaning you have less of that. And the assets that's only done a 3x, you have more of that. So if you look at your portfolio, you're like, okay, I had $1,000 and I could have had a 10x on that if I just held asset A. I held a combination of A and B, which means that part of my portfolio went up by a 10x, right, during this time. And part of my portfolio went up by a 3x. And during that whole entire time, I was earning fees along the way. And there's multiple different strategies you can utilize these fees to reduce the risk or perceived risk or the opportunity cost of putting money into LP. Now, the example Stoic was mentioning, let's say we're going to use $1,000 here for LP. I think personally, I like the minimum, like if somebody's doing it, is around $2,000 because depending on what the fees are like. But check, if you guys can, it's probably hard to see if you're watching on your phone, but they're split between HEX and USDC, right? So if you look at the chart on the right, the green line at the top is the range in which you're selling in, and the green line is the bottom is what the range you're selling in. Right? That's going to be where you choose to buy and sell your USDC for HEX, back and forth. It doesn't matter which direction people want to go. You're like, I will earn the fee from that, right? Sam's coming to the table with HEX and he wants USDC. I'll sell him that and I'll earn a portion of the fees, right? So check these numbers here, right? Where HEX and USDC. Watch what happens as the price changes, right? It comes down towards this bottom range And we went from $900 in USDC to now we have $1,700 in USDC. And then say it comes down all the way out here. What do we have? We have $2,000 in USDC. And then 7 minutes later or 4 days later, say it swung back and goes over here. Now you're all in hex. So that's effectively how you can think about what impermanent loss is. One of the strategies that I like is thinking about it from a coin count perspective. So say, for example, in this example, we're $2,000. When the price is in your range, if you chose this specific range, you're earning about 8% a month, right? You're earning $150 a month. Cool. Well, what if you took your $150 minus fees and you decided to buy the asset that you wanted, right? So say if you want more hex, right? You have another wallet set up, you take your $150, say you earn that, you pull that twice a month, right? So you pull $75 and then you pull $75. So one way to think about this is you can use LP as a way to increase your DCA into any asset that you like. So Stoic, you had an example. I don't know if you want to share it here, but I think GRC said you shared it in Spaces of how you use LP.
That's the question I was going to ask too, which is how, a lot of people have been talking about how, instead of doing market buys and limit buy and trading like that, using LP to gain positions, which I think is what Sam's alluding to.
Yeah, I've only got 1 minute until I got to jump off. I'm sorry, guys, but yeah, I appreciate the opportunity. Yeah, something I mentioned this morning is that I run a huge portion of the budget of our business off LP positions. And I sort of went to our employees when they first started with me, or when each one starts with me, and said, you can get paid on chain or you can get paid in the real world. You guys decide. If you want to get paid on chain, pick the assets you want to get paid in. I'll LP them for you. And that'll mean that I can just pay you largely in fees. Every now and then you've got to dip into a little bit of principal, which kind of sucks. But you've just got this much better way to preserve capital that allows you to be paying people in your organization all the time, just off sitting there in LP. It's fantastic. You don't quite have that same flexibility in almost anything else, right? You don't have that flexibility by buying a new car for the business or by renting additional office space or anything like that. But if you keep it in this one sort of fashion, then and you're smart about it, you don't overcommit to any one pair, you can do really well with it for your organization. So I like holding capital in that way. I think it's smart. I think it's efficient. And for us, it certainly works. And as long as you have people who want to get paid in your company in that particular format, then it works really well.